This was told to me some 30 years ago by a senior at my university. We were just venting about how some of the bus lines we had to catch home were so old and run down. He says to me, "At least we don't have to take that 126 line." I asked, "Why?" "It's air conditioned. Pretty damn good for this hot weather if you ask me." His reply, "They're so old and there are strange stories about the last outbound bus of the night, haven't you heard?" I said no, so he started the story. The 126 line goes through the city from one side and ends up on another. It's a long route, but no one knows why they use the older, more run-down buses. There were reports of accidents and deaths. If one is unlucky enough to catch that bus at night, especially the last ride, they may find themselves being driven by a ghost driver and serviced by a ghost conductor. There's a story of this guy who caught the last bus to get home from a party. There were only a few passengers since it was late. He noticed the bus was going rather slower than normal, but since it's an old bus, he thought nothing of it, and fell asleep from all the drinking. When he woke up a moment later, there was no one on the bus, not even a driver. The air conditioning had stopped working, and he was sweating in the heat. He looked out the window. It was dark, not many cars on the road. But it looked like the bus was still moving, though at a very slow pace, and no sound of the engine. That's when he remembered the story of the last 126 bus of the night. Is he on a ghost bus? He looked around inside the bus again, still no one. He ran from side to side of the bus, banging on the window, screaming for help, hoping someone would see him. Then he felt the bus come to a slow stop. He waited anxiously, not sure what would happen next. Then a man in a driver's uniform opened the door. The man, appearing all sweaty and dirty, walked towards him, angrily. The fear kicked in, and he screamed even louder. The man then shouted at him, "Shut up!" He's about to cry, but the man continued. "Good! You're awake! The engine died. We're all outside trying to push the bus to the curb. Come help us. Make yourself useful, you pisshead." Back in high school, my friends and I decided to go camping one weekend. I won't lie, it was mostly to be able to hang out and drink without the fear of getting caught since we were underage. So, we get all our stuff together and meet at my one buddy's house, who had a lifted truck. We would need to do some light off-roading to get to our destination. This same buddy also had an older sister who bought all the beer for us. Wink, wink. So, we get to his house and throw all our stuff in the back of the truck, pile into the cab, and head out. We'd done this many times before and weren't really worried about running into any issues or problems. Where we liked to camp was about 20 miles outside of our small city, near and sometimes in the mountains. We'd drive well past where the pavement ended, finishing the rest of our trip on dirt roads. We ended up finding a camping spot that was new to us. It was open land on the side of the mountain, right at the edge of the forest. So, near the trees, but not in the trees. We set up camp, then antics ensued. We busted out the beers and tunes, and had ourselves a damn good time. Things like this were common where we lived. Kids in our high school would often throw big ragers out in the country to avoid getting caught. Nothing noteworthy happened the first part of the night. We drank all the beer we brought, got properly lit, hung out till late in the night, then went to bed in the huge 8-man tent we brought. Around 3 a.m., one of my friends woke up to take a leak, and as he was getting out of his sleeping bag, he heard some noises outside the tent that caught his attention. It was footsteps, heavy footsteps. He looked around and saw that we were all still inside the tent, passed out, so he knew it wasn't one of us. He shook me awake and shooshed me just as I was about to chew him out for it. He told me that something was outside the tent. It didn't take long for me to also hear the footsteps. They terrified me, but my curiosity got the better of me. I quietly approached the main door of the tent and very slowly unzipped it just enough to be able to see outside. I look around for a few seconds before laying my eyes on the outline of a huge animal of some kind. My first thought was that it was a bear. It was on all fours and very burly. I was also still kind of drunk, as we had only been in bed for maybe 90 minutes, so no chance of the sun coming up anytime soon. I sat back down into the tent and told my friend that I think there's a bear of some kind in our camp. He gets completely terrified, and we carefully wake the other two friends to update them on the situation. So, there we are. 4 hungover high school boys, frightened to death, huddled inside a tent. We take turns looking outside to see this dark, ominous shape slowly moving around the camp. We brought a shotgun with us, but left it in the truck. So, we were panicked, not knowing what to do. Suddenly, we heard more footsteps approaching. We looked out to see a second shape coming into the camp. We were horrified, expecting at any moment to see a bear paw come ripping through the tent. We sat like this for what felt like forever, but was maybe only 15 minutes, while we were all huddled in there, full of fear, wondering what we were going to do. We suddenly heard a loud... It was a couple of damn cows. We didn't realize it, but we were camping on some rancher's land. We opened the tent, turned on our flashlight right into the face of a couple of cows just sitting there staring at us. It was like they were saying, "What do you idiots want?" We felt like idiots, but were completely relieved that it wasn't bears. We had a good laugh about it and still do to this day whenever it gets brought up. Back in my 20s, I purchased my first house. It was brand new construction in a development far out in the suburbs of my city. My house was the very first home completed, so I was all alone in this entire neighborhood of new construction. It was honestly a little unnerving not having any other people near you, but I was so elated to finally be in my new house that I didn't let it bother me too much. About 2 weeks after I moved in, I was sitting on my couch one night, playing Xbox Live with a group of my buddies. It was Halo 5. It had just barely come out, and we were all about that game for a little while. This is the day before Halloween, and I have one of the windows in my main room open to let the cool air in. I'm focused on the game when I hear a noise that made my heart drop. Screaming, loud, blood-curdling screaming coming from somewhere in my neighborhood. I'm on a headset for the game, and even my buddies heard it. I'm terrified. They tell me to call the police, but I'm hesitant because I don't for sure know what's going on. I hear the screaming again, and I can tell it's a man screaming his guts out. We exit our game, and I tell them I'm going to check it out before calling the cops. I just want to be as sure as possible. I go to my closet and bust out my 12-gauge shotgun, and with my phone in my pocket, head out the front door, very quietly. No sooner had I reached my bottom step when I hear the screaming again. It made me jump about 3 feet in the air. I can now tell where it's coming from, so I head in that direction. My neighborhood is very dark. The city hadn't yet installed street lamps, so I'm walking on the sidewalk past all these empty, mostly finished houses, trying to discover the source of the scream. I'm fully expecting to find a serial killer butchering a victim in one of these empty houses. My street is curved, and I'm maybe 8 houses down from my own. As I round the curve, I see a car parked in front of one of the houses. The house is done, but nobody lives there yet. The garage lights are on, and I hear the screaming again. I'm sweating with anticipation. I grab my phone and put the numbers 911 in. I don't hit send just yet. I want to get confirmation first of what's happening. So, with my phone in my left hand, I hold up the shotgun and approach the garage slowly. I'm about 20 feet away when suddenly I hear the most confusing sound ever. It's the sound of a guy going through vocal range exercises. Then he screams again, after which he starts talking to himself.
Damn it, Chris. Pitch, baby, pitch.
I lower my shotgun and come around the garage wall to see a guy standing in front of a camera propped up on the exposed garage framing. He sees me and lets out a scared yelp while I nearly do the same. "Who are you? And what the hell are you doing?" I ask.
Holy crap, dude, you scared me. I'm Chris, this is my house. We move in 2 weeks. I'm just out here practicing for the Halloween play I'm in.
It turns out this guy was an actor of sorts. He came out to his house thinking he could be completely alone to practice for a Halloween play, in which his character gets attacked and screams out loud. He didn't realize anyone had moved in yet. It's not unusual for contractors to just leave the lights on in the houses that have power, so he just assumed mine was empty as well. You scared the piss out of me, man. I thought someone was being murdered, I told him. He felt bad and really embarrassed, but after the shock of everything subsided, we both had a damn good laugh about the whole thing. I stayed in that house for a few years, and as time went on, every time we'd see each other, we'd both softly scream at each other as an inside joke. I've since moved from that neighborhood, but whenever the opportunity to tell the story comes up, I share the time that an actor scared the living crap out of me.